The president of the United Arab Emirates, Sheikh Mohamed bin Zayed Al-Nahyan, has arrived to the Élysée Palace here in France, where he'll meet with the French president. For more on that, our international affairs editor, Philip Turle, joins me on set. Hi, Philip. So this is President Sheikh Mohamed bin Zayed Al-Nahyan's first overseas visit since taking office in May. What's on the agenda?
Well, quite a lot, in fact, and I think that there's a willingness on both sides to try to cement what's already being described as a pretty strong relationship between the United Arab Emirates and France. There have been some interesting deals signed between the two countries, notably the selling of 80 Rafale jets. That was during talks last year in December. Those are Rafale jets built in France that are being sent to the United Arab Emirates. And this time it's a much more symbolic visit because, as you were saying, this is the first time that Mohammed bin Zayed, MBZ, as he's known, is the official president, having taken over from his brother who passed away in May. That means that he is now trying to cement that relationship with France's Emmanuel Macron. So France is laying out the red carpet, basically, for the United Arab Emirates president. He's meeting with Emmanuel Macron, as you said, at the Élysée Palace this lunchtime, and then there is going to be an official dinner tonight at the Petit Trianon in the Château de Versailles, which is only reserved for certain heads of state. He was already invited during a last visit last year to France, to Fontainebleau, south of Paris, so it's gone up a notch this time round. He's being invited to the Château de Versailles. So I think there's a keenness on the part of France to cement this relationship with the United Arab Emirates, basically because it's seen as a potential provider of oil and natural gas, and also as a provider of new renewable energy, and that is something that France is very keen to get its hands on.
And Philip, similar to what we saw with Joe Biden's visit in several Gulf countries, this has been overshadowed by accusations about the UAE's human rights record and also its failure to condemn the war in Ukraine.
Well, there is also a downside to all of this, and a more somber side, which many human rights organisations have been underlining. First of all, they've said that the United Arab Emirates has a very poor human rights record. There are certain detainees who are kept in solitary confinement, political prisoners. French weapons that have been sold in the past are also suspected of being used in the war in Yemen, which is something they say that France should not be involved in at all. There's also been France following what the United Arab Emirates wanted, and that was to support the renegade leader of Libya against the rest of the world and the legitimately recognised government there. So there has been a lot of criticism about what France is doing, and the fact that sometimes the relationship is so close with the United Arab Emirates that it's overlooking the underlying factor of international law. And there's one also big difference, and that is the opinion of the United Arab Emirates and France, which differ over the war in Ukraine. France wants Russia to introduce a ceasefire and for an agreement to be found through talks. The United Arab Emirates has so far refused to get involved in the conflict. It abstained in a United Nations ruling calling for an end to the fighting in Ukraine because it basically doesn't want to upset its relationship with Russia. And as you were saying, there is this question over supplies of oil, because the West and the United States desperately want the United Arab Emirates, which is the second biggest supplier of oil in the world, and Saudi Arabia to increase their supply of oil. But the United Arab Emirates, because it doesn't want to upset Russia, has probably decided it's not going to do that, just as Saudi Arabia announced to Joe Biden during his visit in the past week that it was not going to do that as well. So there are difficulties that both sides will have to overcome.
Indeed, and French citizens, of course, also looking for some alleviation of those increased energy prices. We'll see if that brings that. Philip Turle, thank you very much.